Hello, third graders. Now that we are finished with our book reports, we are going to start a new teacher-read chapter book. And so we are starting the Swiss Family Robinson. And today's video will be chapter 1A. If you notice here, this is the Robinson family album. You have Mr. Robinson and his wife, and their 4 sons, Fritz, who is 16, Ernest, who is 13, Jack, who is 10, and Franz, who is 8. Chapter 1, Shipwrecked and Alone. When one has a good tale to tell, he should try to be brief, and not say more than he can help. So I shall not say a word of what took place on board the ship till we had been 6 days in a storm. The ship had gone far out of her true course, and no one on board knew where we were. The masts lay in splints on the deck. A leak in the side of the ship let more in than the crew could pump out, and each one felt that before long he would find a grave in the deep sea, which sent its spray from side to side of what was now but a mere hulk. A hulk is a wrecked ship that is unfit for sailing. And in this story, the dad is the one speaking. "Come, boys," I said to my 4 sons who were with me. "God can save us, if it please him to do so. But if this is to be our last hour, let us bow to his will. We shall at least go down side by side." My dear wife could not hide the tears that fell down her cheeks as I thus spoke to my sons, but she was calm and knelt down to pray, while the boys clung round her as if they thought she could help them. Just then we heard a cry of "Land! Land!" We felt a shock, and it was clear that we had struck a rock, for we heard a loud cry from one of the men, "We are lost! Launch the boat! Save yourselves!" I went at once on deck and found that all the boats had been let down, and that the last of the crew had just left the ship. I cried out for the men to come back and take us with them, but it was in vain. That means it was useless. I then thought that our last chance was gone. Still, as I felt the ship was not sinking, I went to the stern. The stern is the rear section of the ship. And I found to my joy that she was held up by a piece of rock on each side, and stuck fast like a wedge. At the same time, I saw some trace of land which lay to the south, and this made me return to my family with some hope that we had still a faint chance. As soon as I got downstairs, I took my wife by the hand and said, "Be of good cheer. We are at least safe for some time, and if the wind should change, we may yet reach the land that lies but a short way off." I said this to calm the fears of my wife and sons, and it did so far more than I had a right to hope. "Let us eat some food," said my wife. "We are sure to need it, for this will no doubt be a night to try our strength." My wife got some food for the boys, which we were glad to see them eat, poor as it was, but we could not share their meal. 3 out of the 4 were put to bed, and soon went to sleep, but Fritz, who was our first child, would not leave us. He said, like a good son, that he would try to be of some use, and think what could be done. "If we could but find some cork," Fritz said to me in a low tone, "we might make floats. You and I will not need them, for we can swim, but the rest will need some such means to keep them up." "A good thought," I said. "Let us try to find what things there are in this ship that we can make use of." We soon found some casks, so some barrels, and ropes, and with these we made a kind of float for each of the 3 boys, and then my wife made one for her own use. This done, we got some knives, string, and such things that we could secure to our belts. We did not fail to look for and find a flint and steel, and the box in which the burnt rags were kept, for these were at that time the means of lighting a fire. A flint is a piece of rock that sparks when struck with steel. Fritz, who was now well nigh worn out, lay down on his bed and slept like the rest. As for me and my poor wife, we kept watch, each in fear lest the next wave should lift the ship off the rock and break it up. I need not tell you how glad we were when we saw the first gleam of light. At dawn, the wind did not blow so strongly, the sky was clear of clouds, and we saw the sun rise, and with it rose our hopes. I soon had my wife and sons on deck. "Where are the men?" they said. "How can we steer the ship?" "My dear boys," I said, "he who has kept us safe till now will still aid us. Let all hands set to work, and leave the rest to God." At these words, we all went to work with a will. My wife went to feed the livestock. Fritz set off in search of weapons, and Ernest made his way to the tool chest. Jack ran to pick up what he could find, but as he got to one of the doors he gave it a push, and two huge dogs sprang out and leaped at him. He thought at first that they would bite him, but he soon found that they meant him no harm, and one of them let him get on his back and ride up to me as I came from the bottom of the ship. When the boys had done their search and the spoil was brought on deck, we thought we had found all that we should need. "As for me," said my wife, "I've brought good news, for we still have on board a cow, a donkey, 2 goats, 6 sheep, a ram, a pig, and a sow, and I have food for them all." "All that you bring will be of use," I said, "but I fear that Jack's dogs will do us more harm than good." "Not at all," said Jack, "for they can help us to hunt when we get to land." "Well said, Jack, and now let us see what we can do that will aid us to get there." We then took the casks that we had found, and Ernest and I soon cut them in half. With these tubs we made a kind of raft, though it was no slight task. The tubs, in fact, were 8 small round boats, tied so tightly together that no one of them could float away from the rest. The next thing to be done was to launch the raft. This we finally did, and when the boys saw it slide down the side of the ship and float on the sea, they gave a loud shout, and each one tried who should be the first to get on it. I tied it securely to the ship and left it there. I then told my wife to change her clothes and wear some of those left by the crew, as her skirts would have got in her way when she had to climb. She did not like this at first, but did so as soon as she saw the truth of what I told her. At last, when all was done, we went to bed and slept as soundly as if we had been on land.